Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us on a lovely, cold Saturday morning. It's nice to see everybody out, and I hope you had easy travels getting here. I'm going to go through a couple of introductory slides before we get into the heart of the day. Navigating loss, that's our topic for today. And we chose this title specifically because as we go through loss, it's not always about death. When people talk about loss, they assume it's always about death, and indeed it is many times. But as we go through our journey of loss, it's not always about death, and we're going to explore that today. So a little bit about us and who we are, and a little bit about myself. I am Mary Bart, and I am the founder of our registered Canadian charity called Caregiving Matters. We were established in 2008, and we are out of King Township. So we are a local, rural, grassroots charity. Our mission is to offer education and support to family caregivers. But we're a bit of a different kind of a charity. We don't have bricks and mortar. The way we're authorized by the CRA is we're an internet-based charity. And 90% of our work is done online, either through videos or podcasts or leveraging technologies, and 10% is like today, doing workshops. So when we applied to become a charity and we were given the opportunity to be that, we were the fourth charity in the country back in 2008 to be recognized as an internet-based charity. So that was kind of fun and interesting. And the reason we chose that is because we wanted to reach as many people as possible in the most sustainable, cost-effective way possible. So when we don't have brick and mortars, we're all volunteers. We can do a whole bunch of work without worrying about money and budgets. When we have our board meetings, we only talk about planning and what we've done and our results. Never do we worry about money and fundraising. So we are a different kind of charity, and most charities are not-for-profits struggle to find ways to raise money. We don't even talk about it because we don't even need much money. And when we get money, it's through grants to do projects like this. So since 2008, we have thousands and thousands of articles dug deep into our website. It's a very robust website. We have upwards of probably 50 or 60 different videos from different workshops we've done. We have podcasts. Some of the projects that we have done in the past have been elder abuse awareness projects, wellness for caregivers. We've done extensive work on power of attorney, where we've had 30 or 40 or 50 lawyers participating in our project, estate planning projects. So we've done a wide variety of projects, and people say, well, why? Why do you do such a wide variety of projects if you're dealing with older adults and caregivers? Well, very simply, because families deal with all of those issues. So there's not a family that doesn't deal with a power of attorney issue at some point, or estate planning, or caregiver burnout. So we look at tough topics. And as we leverage the internet, the last time I looked, we had visitors from 69 countries from around the world. So that's a really cool way to reach people. So we're very proud of the work that we do. And drop by our website whenever you can. It's always changing. It's www.caregivingmatters.ca. So that's just a little bit about us. This project has been funded by the province of Ontario, so we thank them for contributing the funds to host this event. Here's our agenda for today. I'm doing the welcome and introduction. Until lunchtime, our main speaker, Eleanor Silverberg, will be talking, and she's going to have four main topics this morning. The first is the effect of social isolation versus social connection. Her second topic is strengthening well-being and applying her 3A approach to well-being, and she'll explain that. Her third topic is letting go and holding on to reconnect after loss. And her last topic before lunch is exploring closure as it affects well-being. So navigating loss, it really isn't just about death. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, we all live with loss. Some of the examples that I can think of could be loss of independence, loss of mobility, loss of a relationship, loss of identity if we're leaving a job or if we're an empty nester. And leaving a job could be as simple as you're missing your peers. It could be you got fired and you are suddenly missing that whole corporate experience. So there is loss there for sure. Or you simply miss what used to be. And that could be someone who is suddenly a caregiver and now they're dealing with some loved one and they just miss that person being well. So there's a lot of loss that we have in our lives. So how does loss make us feel? Well, these are just a few, but overwhelmed and lost for sure. Hopelessness, no sense of purpose. Why should I even get out of bed? There's nothing for me to live for. We hear that a lot. Depression and sadness, pure broken heart, pure broken heart. You can be angry and you can be bitter. And these feelings are all real. And what they really do is they take a terrible toll on our whole bodies, our spirits, our soul. So everything around us and everybody around us is impacted when we're dealing with loss. And here's a real big important thing about loss. Loss can cause us to become more isolated. We can withdraw from society and not even know it, or maybe we like it, and that's a bad sign. We might want to stay at home alone. So as we withdraw from society, we lose our connection to our family and friends. And sometimes you see it when a man has lost his wife and he becomes really isolated and almost like a hermit. And his hygiene goes down and his health goes down. He has no reason to get out of the house. And so those are really important things to think about as we look at loss. And everybody who deals with loss and honestly with themselves say, am I as socially engaged now as I was before this loss happened? It's a really good question to ask yourself. And if you say, no, honestly, I'm not doing as much, or I'm not calling my friends, or I can't be bothered getting together with family for this or that, acknowledge that and say, boy, I'm heading in the wrong direction. I need to pull myself back and stay engaged in society, because when we're not engaged in society, it's when we become more vulnerable and we are more susceptible to abuse. And nasty things happen to our bodies when we are not engaged in society. So that's just a big red flag to look for. So coping with loss, well, indeed, it takes a lot of time. It does take skill to move forward. And if you can't figure out how to move forward, then you've got to find a way to do it, either through workshops or one-on-one or on the internet or books or talking. But you can't stay where you are. You've got to find a way to move forward. And grieving really is a process, and it's not easy and it's not instant. And sometimes people say to me, well, when is the hurt going to stop? That's a fair question. And I don't think it ever stops. It changes and we change. But you have to learn to adapt and rejig your life to make it work. And absolutely, this is a journey, and a journey can be long, and it can have a lot of curves to it, and sometimes the journey makes you back up 5 steps. But you got to find a way to plug and plow through it. And that's what we're going to deal with a bit today. I'll give you my story of loss and why I started this charity. When my parents died, I was so lost and overwhelmed. And for 2 years, I did nothing. I functioned, but I couldn't even cope with life. I was so depressed. And I would take my 2 dogs out for their last visit outside, and I would just look at the sky and cry and cry and cry. And I knew that was wrong. I knew my mom and dad wouldn't want me to be so sad, and here I am crying. And so I said, I've got to find something that's going to work for me. So I bought a bunch of books. They did nothing for me. I couldn't figure those things out. Group sessions, I couldn't figure those things out, and I didn't really want to share that with other people, because that's just not me. I'm too private, but I'm sharing it now. So there's a journey just to share my story. So I said, you know what? I can't figure any of this out, but I know my mom and dad would not want me to be so sad. I know it. They would not want me to cry the rest of my life. Like, that is not who they want me to be. And I was in my mid-50s, and I thought, oh, I can't cry the rest of my life. This is just wearing me out. So then eventually I said to myself, well, there's got to be other people who are dealing with loss. Somewhere around the world, there might be somebody from another culture who could teach me something, or could I learn something from a Chinese person or a First Nations person? There's got to be ways for us to connect. I worked in the computer industry for many years, mostly at Microsoft, and so I said, there's got to be a way that I can figure out how to use technology to bring people together who are overwhelmed with loss. And that was where this charity came from. So months and months of planning and work and creating a board and everything, suddenly after many months, my days were not filled with tears. And there were more ideas coming into my brain than tears. So I found a way to work through my loss by creating what we have here today. And so I rejigged myself, I reinvented my life, but it suited me. So everybody has their own way of coping with loss. And so you have to be so honest with yourself. And at some point you say, this is so not working. I am so unhappy. What am I going to do to get myself out of this rut? I can't do this the rest of my life. I'll just, wear out. And so be open in your minds to creating things differently and thinking about things differently. And it all comes down to courage. It's all courage to believe in yourself. And we forget that when we're dealing with loss. So that's my story. But really what the day is about is working with our guest speaker. Her name is Eleanor Silverberg. Eleanor. She has her master's in social work. She's the founder of a company called Jade Self-Development Coaching. She is a specialist in dementia, grief, and caregiving. She does a lot of workshops all around the GTA. She does workshops for University of Toronto teaching students on grief. She has written many books, and she's here to speak with us today. So we're honored. She's out of Richmond Hill, so she's come north. Thank you, Eleanor. And the morning is for her and you, and I'll hand it over to her. Thank you.